Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie and it's time for another 7 on Sunday. So this Sunday's topic is your top 7 long series. And I'm going to go put this down because it's a lot and it's falling on me. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So most of these books are fantasy with one sci-fi and one older book, a book that is from a series and is considered a classic. Or, well, I always wonder about that because sometimes books that are considered, there's like books, not all older books are considered classic. But this is a well-known author, at least at the time, although they're not as popular today. But either way, it's not a fantasy. It's not a fantasy or even sci-fi for that matter. And a lot of these are book series that I've had to start over because I started reading them years ago and then I put them down. The book I was currently reading from the series, I put it down and didn't come back to it for a while because for the longest time I had trouble reading 500 plus page books. I mean, I still have trouble with it, like getting through those. But I'm trying to get better at that. It is a bit of a challenge though. So here are the 7 longer series that are on my TBR. Okay, the first one is one of the more famous fantasy series from the 90s. It started and it now has a TV show on Amazon, and it's 15 books if you count the prequel. Originally it was 14, I believe, but now there's 15 if you count the prequel. And that is the Wheel of Time series, and this is the 4th book in the series, The Shadow Rising. It's a chosen one story about this farm boy, Rand al'Thor, and he lives in a world where magic has been taken from men because men are seen as if they use magic, they'll either go crazy or go just plain evil. And it mostly came from because this one particular man became this powerful evil lord. So now women fear men having magic. But there's a prophecy that this one man will be able to possess the magic, and he can go either way. He can go all crazy and evil, or he can actually be the savior. And Rand al'Thor is the suspected chosen one for this. And his guide is this woman Moraine, who is from the Aes Sedai, who are like priestesses, sorceress type people, and her guardian, this warrior named Lan. And they find Rand and take him along with his friends, who it turns out might be part of Rand's destiny as well, on this quest to prepare him, to train him and make sure he doesn't go evil on them. It is a little tropey. It's a bit tropey series, but actually it's fun so far anyway. And I haven't got to the part that people say is a slog, where not a lot is happening. I haven't got to that part yet in the series. And I remember, and because Robert Jordan had passed away, Brandon Sanderson took it over. I don't know how many books Brandon Sanderson wrote. I don't know if it's like 3 or 4. But anyway, I think it's a really fun series. It's a little bit, it's like I said, it's an older series, and it might not be for every fantasy reader. But I think it's worth checking out. At least attempt to read the first book, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna continue this, and I might read the 4th book before the end of the year. I don't know. I have two more months to go, and I don't know if I'll get to it yet. Hope maybe I will, maybe I won't, or at least maybe I'll start it in December. hopefully, or November, who knows. Okay, so next series is another epic 10-book series, actually. And it is the guy who continued the Wheel Time series, Brandon Sanderson, and his Stormlight Archives. And it's really sad. This book is on my pile of shame because I keep starting this book and putting it down for long periods of time. I need to get back to it soon so I don't feel the need to start over all over again. I mean, there's probably no point in me starting all over again because I'm just gonna, I'm probably gonna put it down again at some point. So I'll just keep going from where I am. And, I got pretty far. I mean, I'm on page 573, so that's pretty impressive. At least I think so. And yeah, as I say, when there's the epic fantasy doesn't have a simple plot, it's hard for me to explain it. But this world it's been so long. I mean, I could probably, if I had picked it up more recently and started reading it again more recently, I probably could attempt to explain it to you guys. It's this world where, I'm not going to even attempt to explain it. I don't remember. And most people probably, especially if you're a fantasy fan, a lot of people probably are familiar with this book, with the series. This is the first book. Sadly, I have not finished the first book, but I do know that there are going to be, there are 2 arcs, so there's going to be 1 more book in this arc, and then the 6th book is going to be a whole new arc. But there's going to be 10 books altogether. I'm really enjoying this series. It's just, again, it's a big commitment. It's definitely 10 times longer than Mistborn. But yeah, I gotta get to this one. And at least ideally I want to make a dent in this book too before the end of the year. Okay. So next is, here we're finally getting to the series that's neither fantasy nor sci-fi. It's an older series, even older than those 2. And that is Anthony Trollope's The Barset Sire series. Sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. This is book number, let me see if it right. It does not say which book number it is. I think it's either 4 or 5. But this is one of those series where I think you could read them out of order, but it might spoil things for you. Because you're following different characters in each book, but they're all part of the same community. This is a kind of a small town community. A village where the church kind of is in charge and runs the community. The first book, although a lot of people say you can skip the first book and come back to it, it's like people feel like the first book, The Warden, is more of a prologue to the series. This is like I said, this is either book 4 or 5. I do not remember. I think it's 4. I think I've read 3 books so far. Like the Warden is this. The warden of the hospital is accused by a journalist that he is getting too much money, and this money should go to the hospital. And it's kind of a conflict of interest. He's very conflicted because the warden is not a greedy, selfish man. He feels guilty about this and doesn't know what to do, but he's still human. And this salary he and his daughter, his youngest daughter, are living off of this salary. And the journalist, unfortunately, that is accusing him is actually in love with his daughter, wants to marry her. So that also makes things very confusing as well. And that's just the first book. There's, I believe, 7 books in the series, I think. In this, but it's a very cozy series. It's about the day-to-day life of people in this little English village. It might, in the drama they experience, like, if you like small town stories in America, and you might like these as well. Like I said, it is older, so the writing is a little different from today, what we're used to today. But like I said, if you like small town America, you might like small town England, which is kind of what this is, I think, anyway. So there's that series. So that is 3 books, 3 series that I need to complete. And then number 4, okay, so this is a series that I read years ago. It's again another older series that was written in the 90s. And unfortunately, it's still not complete yet. And I know people are getting really impatient and feeling like it's never going to be complete. Especially because the TV series based off of the books has completely, like, it's been, I think, like 2 years now. 2 or 3 years. And they had the first season of the series based off of his spin-off books. That first season has been completed. And I'm talking about the Song of Ice and Fire series, which, if you only know the TV show, it is the Game of Thrones series. This is the 2nd book. So I had already read the first 2 books and really enjoyed them. And then I started reading the 3rd book, but again, 500 plus page book. I tend to put those down and come back to them and then realize, okay, I need to start all over with them because I barely remember anything. Although with this series, because of the TV show, I remember some stuff. So I restarted and reread the 1st book, and then obviously I started rereading the 2nd book. So once I get this one done, I can finally jump into the 3rd book. So once I get past the 3rd book, it will be an accomplishment, in my opinion. I probably don't need to tell you what this is, because again, it's a very well-known series. All these people are fighting over this Iron Throne. There's these ice zombies coming to get everybody, but everybody's more focused on the throne and who's in charge. It's a really good series, very dark. I don't know if this would be considered grimdark or not. It's very much more realistic and authentic to a medieval world. And there's really no good or bad characters. They're just people trying to survive in the world. But there are some characters that are more moral than others and trying to do the right thing, like the Starks. And I do know that it is the whole series is based partly on the War of the Roses. It's a very fun series. He has a very easy writing style, but it's very, like, and there's lots of, like, adult content in these books. So I wouldn't recommend this for young teenagers, maybe late teens. If you're one of those people who have not read this series, but I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure most people are familiar with it at least. But yeah, so I need to continue this one as well. And this is kind of my priority out of all the series I need to continue, because, you know, my mom keeps asking me every time we would watch an episode of the first season of House of the Dragon, she would ask me if I've read Fire and Blood yet, and I have read the first chapter. I tested it out when I bought it. Well, although basically I'm sure my mom actually paid for it, because she, added it to all the things she was buying when we went to BJ's. So she probably paid for it. And I started reading the first chapter, but then I put it down and planned on coming back to it at some point. But I want to prioritize this before I even attempt Fire and Blood, because I need to get past book 3. Let's see, that's series number 4. Okay, so series number 5. This is, again, we're back to ones that I have started rereading. Basically, almost all of these are ones that I've started to reread. The Wicked Years, this is the 2nd book. There are 4 books in this series. And this is about the origin story of the Wicked Witch of the West. And you guys know I read the first book in October. And I talked about it in my wrap-up a little bit. I might do a review. I'm still trying to decide if I want to do a review or not. Which actually, I'm going to start doing reviews more often on my channel. I want to try to but I'm not going to review every book. I'm just going to review some of the books I feel like I can do a decent review on. But this is the second book, and this is about this young man who, Lear, who might be the Wicked Witch's. In the second book, this second book is about Lear, who might be the Wicked Witch's son, Elphaba's son, and his journey to find out more about about Elphaba. And I don't remember a lot about the plot in this book, so I need to. That's part of why I'm rereading. I remember the first book a little bit better, especially since the musical, which I think if you like the musical, and I probably said this in my wrap up. If you like the musical, there's no guarantee you'll like the book, because the book is still, it has the basic plot points, but it is a little darker and a little different, more adult content in the first book, in the book Wicked. And of course it continues in the rest of the series. This was a series that I had not read the last book, and I put it down, and I gave my copies to Larissa, so I've been meaning to come back to it, and I want to read the second book this year, before the year ends. So that's another series on my TBR. So some of these books, well, like only 2 of them really, I'm trying to prioritize in the next 2 months, possibly 3. I'm going to prioritize in November and December, but I also want to try to I started getting library books again, and I also want to make a dent in my nonfiction book that I'm currently reading. Okay, so that was number 5, so 2 more books to talk about. Okay, so next is another older one. Actually, only one of these is still pretty young. A young series, that more recent series, and that was the Stormlight Archives. Okay, so next is the Dark Tower series. This is the Wastelands, the 3rd book in the series. Again, sadly another series that I read the first few books and then started the next one and then did not finish it and put it down for a period of time. And I remember enjoying this book a lot. I liked the train in this book. But that's the only thing I remember is the train. But once I start reading, it will probably all come back to me once I start reading it. I read the first 2 books last year, and I figured, why don't I go ahead and read this book in November as well, because since I read the first 2 books in November, reread the first 2 books in November, I probably won't. Ideally, I wanted to get to book 4. I wanted to start book 4 at the end of the year and get in, but I don't think I'll be able to, because the first 2 books were, at least book 1, the Gunslinger, was very short, while the other ones are not as short. This is a 7-book series, and I really like these covers. I like the images on these covers. I think it's a really cool design, and I like the colors. I'm very much a colorful covers person. I mean, unless it just doesn't fit the aesthetic of the story. You know, you can still have color and but I do think you can still have color, obviously, and fit the aesthetic. It just depends on what you use, what colors you use. But, yeah, and I heard the movie adaptation is not that great. But it's not a surprise, because, you know, it's a movie, and this is a 7-book series, and each book is and Stephen King's books are pretty long. And the plot is very complicated. It's a fantasy series about the last gunslinger of his world, Roland of Gilead, and he is on a mission to not only get to the Dark Tower, but to find the Man in Black. That's the first book. And by the second book, he finds himself in our world, once in the 1950s and then in the 80s, where he comes across Susanna and Dean, not Dean, Dean's his last name, Eddie Dean, and he brings them along to be part of his quartet. And another character and then also this young boy who he met in the first book, but from a different time, also joins the quartet. And this book picks up where they left off, where they were on a beach and being chased by those lobstrosities, these creatures that look like lobsters. They're being chased by them, and they have to get to, and I believe they come to a door at the end of the book, and then I think this next book picks up where the second book left off. Okay, and then the last one, again, another older one, and that is the Dune series. This is Children of Dune, book 3. I know the writing style I had a hard time I couldn't get into right away. But I did like the plot. The first two books the first book is about this young man named Paul, and his family is a very prestigious families. They're part of the government, and they have been sent to this desert planet, which is nicknamed Dune. It's called Arrakis. And his father, while on this planet, gets assassinated. So it forces Paul and his mother Jessica to go on the run. And it turns out that Paul is the chosen one. Is believed to be the chosen one and the chosen savior of these people, the people of Arrakis, and the desert people of Arrakis. I cannot remember what they are, and he's believed by the people that his mother was part of this religious order. And he has all these powers, these really cool powers, like he can manipulate people's thoughts. And it's it's kind of more of a look on the whole chosen one's trope and how it may not be as great as people think it is. And that just because someone is a chosen one, it might not turn out that great after all. So this is the third book, and like I said, I enjoy the series. I have not, it's hard to get into at first. Like I said, the writing, I feel like it's not for everybody. But still, I think it's still a pretty good series, a very interesting series. It provides a lot of questions to think about. So there's that. And that is the last series on this list. Those are the 7 series on my long series on my TBR that I need to continue with. I would love to know what your series, long series, if you're reading any long series, which ones you are continuing, which ones do you need to read. Feel free to share in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already and you are interested in my channel. And click the bell if you want to be notified by my latest videos. And I hope you guys are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye.